This was the first time I ever deviated when my mother told me every year I'd get promoted, every year I'd make more money. This was the first time that I said if I'm ever going to write a book about my business life, the title of that book would be The Worst They Can Do Is Eat You, Surviving Your Business During Hard Times. And I actually sold that book in 2002 to Dearborn Trade Press. It's owned by the Washington Post. It's a very conservative publishing company. And the publisher, she brought me into her office, and she closed the door. What does that mean? I'm in trouble, right? That's what you do, right? When you close the door, you're in trouble. She said to me, Barry, we love this manuscript. It's not like any other business book that's out there, except we're uncomfortable with one thing. I said, Cynthia, what's that one thing? She says, we're really uncomfortable with the title, The Worst They Can Do Is Eat You. I said, what's wrong with the title? She says, well, the worst they can do is eat you. It kind of sounds pornographic to us. I thought for a second. I said, Cynthia, if it was meant to be pornographic, the title of the book would have been The Best They Can Do Is Eat Me. But she didn't laugh, believe me. This title actually comes from my best friend. He's a personal injury attorney over here in Pittsburgh. He always likes me to mention his name. His name is Zane Smith, in case anybody hurts themselves carrying on the way out. He always used to say to me during very, very bad times, the worst they can do is eat you, and that's illegal. And I don't know. That made me feel better. Knowing they could cook me, knowing they could stew me, knowing they could put a fork in me and pronounce me done, I always felt at the end of the business day, I could go to sleep and get another chance. This idea of letting go of our failures is very strange in American business because we're always taught when we fail, there's always something to learn, right? That we can't leave this place of failure till we figure out why failure happened to us and what there is to learn. Let me tell you a secret. After being in business for 30 years, sometimes when we fail, it just sucks. There's nothing to learn. In my last company, when my largest customer was indicted by the government, what was I to learn? Not to do business with criminals. When my best employee left because her husband got a job in another state, what was I to learn? Not to hire married people. If failure was such a prerequisite to success, then when we did fail, we'd all write letters to each other that went something like this. To everyone I know, from me. Subject, yippee, another failure. I can't help brag that I failed yet again. I'm writing because I knew you'd want to share this wonderful moment with me. I'm so proud of myself because as a result of my latest failure and all the unbelievable things I've been able to learn, I'm that much closer to that big financial success. I'm certain that my time is coming soon because I am failing at an increasing rate and I'm learning so much. Please stay in touch so I can have an even greater failure and get the success you know that I deserve. Why don't we write letters to each other like this? Why don't we? Why don't we? Why don't we? We don't like to admit it because when we fail, how does that make us feel? Like a failure, how does that feel? It makes us feel bad, right? It makes us feel ashamed, right? How many people have been to New Zealand and have visited with the Maori people? Anybody? Have you? No? All right, we'll skip that story then. The Maori people, anybody watch soccer, the All Blacks? Yeah? So, what do the Maori people look like? Do you know they look a little different than you and I? What do they look like? They what? You've only heard them. So they have tattoos on their faces, right? And why do they have tattoos on their faces? Because unlike us, unlike English, they never had a written language. So they had to tattoo all the things that happened to them on their faces. So when they died, their children would carve their face in pieces of wood and the tattoos of their faces to preserve their oral tradition. So I got to thinking, what if as entrepreneurs, we had to tattoo all the good and bad things that happened to us on our faces, right? When we started a business, when we went out of business, when we hired someone, when we had a great sale, certainly would make cocktail parties a lot more interesting, right? We couldn't hide that shame. Because most of us think when we fail, we should be in a different place. That with our skills and our energy and our education, we should be farther along. That's just nonsense. In order to be successful in business, you actually only need to do one thing. Just one thing, and it's the hardest thing of all, and that's to let go. There are these two monks. They're walking through the forest, and they come across a beautiful bride crying by the river. The two monks ask her, "What's wrong?" She says, her wedding's on the other side of the river, but she can't cross the river because it's too high. She's afraid she's going to ruin her wedding dress. The two monks, they look at each other. They're not really sure what to do. You see, because they are forbidden by their religious vows to touch other women. However, the first monk, he doesn't hesitate. He scoops up the woman, he carries her across the river, and puts her down on the other side. The second monk, seeing what the first monk has done, races across the river, screaming at the first monk, saying, "How could you have touched that woman? How could you have broken all of our monthly vows?" They're walking back through the forest that night, and the first monk is enjoying the bright sunshine on his face and the cool breeze in his hair. But the second monk, he keeps berating the first monk, saying, "How could you have touched that woman?" They get back to the monastery that night, and they're having a very peaceful dinner at the monastery. Not a lot of conversation going on at the monastery at dinner time. It's kind of like my table at dinner time with my two teenage sons, right? No one's really saying anything. But the second monk keeps laying into the first monk, saying, "How could you have touched that woman?" The first monk says, "What woman?" The second monk says, "That woman that you carried across the river." The first monk said, "I only carried her across the river. You carried her all the way back to the monastery." Nod your head if you understand. If you don't understand, nod your head anyways. People think you're stupid. This ball represents your last business result. When your last business result is a resounding success, we want to show everyone, right? We're hoping that we get an award because our business is so great. And when that last business result is a failure, we want to hold it tight, we want to hide it, we don't want to show anybody. In order to be successful in business, you have to take your last business result, success or failure, learn whatever you can, let go, and bounce. When you let go and bounce, you give yourself another chance to take an action, and each action can lead to success. Tiger Woods, still probably the greatest golfer of all time, he says he plays golf with a very short memory. He only focuses on the next shot. And like rubber band ball, we have to be resilient. Sorry, I have a backup one. I don't dare go down there. I'm afraid what's going to happen to the microphones. We have to be resilient. We've got to be flexible. We've got to realize we bounce. Since our business and our lives are regularly shaped, we always don't bounce back to the exact same place. Failure is going to come to all of us. When we do fail, we can't spend all sorts of time trying to figure out every possible thing that went wrong. This is perfectly illustrated in the 1970s, where there was a great contest that gave $1 million out to the first group of people that can fly an airplane for a mile under solely human power. It was called the Kremer Prize. All the great institutions of the day entered: Caltech, MIT, IIT. But one group of hobbyists, headed up by a gentleman named Paul McCready, entered his airplane, which he called the Gossamer Albatross. And the way that they flew the Gossamer Albatross is they would fly the airplane until it crashed. And when it did crash, he would fix the obvious stuff and get the plane up in the air again. During the course of the competition, the Gossamer Albatross crashed over 500 times and won the $1 million prize. Similarly, in business, we have to try as many things as possible over as short a period of time as possible with as few resources possible to get to where we want to go. But as we're getting to where we want to go, I believe we have to do it in a very specific and action-oriented way. Now, every speaker has their acronym. As mine is called DAB. And the reason mine is called DAB, D-A-B, It's because I was growing up, I used to watch my father get ready for work. Did anybody do that? Just you. I guess that's it. No, we have two people. I used to watch my father get ready for work, and he used to shave, right? And then he used to stand there, and he used to go like this. He goes, "A little dabble do ya." Now, for those of you that aren't college students, what does that mean? Where's that from? Brill cream, right? So mine's DAB. Drive where you want to go, accept the results you get, build the life you want. Drive where you want to go, accept the results you get, build the life you want. You're responsible for your own actions in this world, but you always can't control the results. But what you can control is your attitude towards those results, to learn what you can, take action, and give yourself another chance of success. But one of the problems we have is we're constantly driving to where we want to go. Many of us in America are addicted to achievement. We're constantly told, go, 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 to conquer the next mountain, to build our lives bigger, better, faster. And that's a problem. Because keeping up with the Joneses, there's always someone that's going to be richer, smarter, or better looking than you. Well, maybe not you, Carrie. You look really nice tonight. That's why I think we have to come up with our own definition of success. Is success about making money? Sure, right? Partly is, right? It's one of the ways we keep score. But if it's only about money, and we never get to that pot of gold, we don't want to think we wasted our time. That's why I believe we have to come up with a way to be what I call happily successful. I define happily successful as being able to support my family at something I love doing. And you got to be careful, because you have to remember that in this world, in your business, having too much money will actually make you stupid. This gentleman just said, "I hope God makes me a blithering idiot," right? We've seen time and time again that people just throw money at problems during the fat times in our economy. And you got to use your brain power first. It's one of the things that we talk about in small town rules. What happens with lottery winners? What happens with their money usually? They lose it, right? 95% of them lose it in 5 years. Now, if we won the lottery, it would be different, right? It would be different. You know, they did a study of people that had won the lottery and people that had been in a car accident. And they looked at people's levels of happiness before their incident and after the incident. Who do you think was happier right after their incident? The people that won the lottery or the people that were in a car accident? How many people for lottery? Raise your hands. How many people for accident? How many people want another hors d'oeuvre? This is not a trick question. Really, the people that won the lottery were happier right afterwards. However, here's the interesting part, why I tell the story. Just 6 weeks after their incident, people returned to their original level of happiness. So then it's more than really just about money. So I want to relay 4 things to you, 4 skills you need to develop if you're going to be successful in a small business. The first skill is that we've got to be able to hire the right people. You know, a lot of folks come up to me and they say, "Barry, I've got an idea for a great business. What do you think?" Have you ever been asked that question? And I give them the answer all the time, which is, I have no idea. Because you see, businesses are not about ideas. Businesses are about the execution of those ideas. Have you ever heard the expression, "If you build it, they will come"? What movie is that from? That was Kevin Costner's last good movie, wasn't it? Some people go like, "Waterworld." I'm like, no. Just because you build it doesn't mean people will come.